Good evening, traveler. I trust your journey went well. Welcome to my manor. I am your host, Lord of All, but you can call me the Dungeon Master. Sit down, relax, as I share with you the first in a series of D&D adventures upon the world of Bathhouse. These stories are mostly one-shot adventures that can be used as a side quest to help DMs press for time, or give a little inspiration for those who are having a blockage of ideas. Now keep in mind, I don't give exact rules for encounters and situations, as I don't want to pin these adventures to any specific level or edition. Instead, I want them to be a tool, customizable for your own specific campaign. I hope you find these stories useful, and for our first adventure, I call it the Acid Bathhouse. On the western edge of the Zephlin Kingdom, within the Asterian swamps, stands the remains of old knoll ruins rising out of dark water. Not many come here anymore since the goblins and knoll tribes moved east, leaving behind their savage ways to build great coliseums and libraries in a new age of enlightenment. These ruins were the prototypes built by the first goblin engineers, inspired by Queen Zephlin's Renaissance. But the swampy lands could not hold their heavy marble buildings, whose foundations would sink and crumble into the marsh. The structures were abandoned in favor of harder ground, and now only a few old bathhouses sit in the middle of algae-covered lakes. One in particular is known as the Acid Bathhouse. A goblin named Urgel, a professor from the city of Gargenberg, studied moss and fungus for years. Traveling across the continent, cataloging every species, he managed to bring in hundreds of specimens to the city's libraries. But as the Academy's focus turned towards engineering, his life work was considered useless. Urgel left wandering into the Asterian swamps, making those bathhouses his new laboratory. He studied for the better part of a year before he encountered an acid mold that clustered around the edge of the Green Kingdom swamps. Despite warnings from the local Green Knights to never enter their lands or risk a terrible curse, Urgel traveled deep into the forbidden bogs and came across the bright green, pulsing fungus. The spores he knew to be acidic, but not parasitic. With one breath, several spores entered his body and rooted into his brain, and in a moment, Urgel became a thrall. Returning to the ruins, the fungus parasite took over his mind and forced him to grow more of their kind, killing all his other samples. He spread the fungus upon their command across the bathhouse and through the swamps. It wasn't until the fungus began to grow upon local villages near Swamp Run that the local chiefs become concerned, dissolving structures to a greenish paste, turning well water acidic. The local leaders have offered a reward to anyone who can find the source of this infestation and bring about its end. This is a good chance to offer that magic item or information the players really want or need. Also, monetary reward should reflect the player's level. The players will first encounter the acidic fungus around Swamp Run, growing on structures and vegetation. It rapidly spreads to neighboring towns through spores carried by the wind. The players will come across dead wildlife, layered in fungus, their guts eating away by acid. Upon investigation, it's possible to find goblins or gnolls who live at the edge of the swamps, infected, their skin covered in fungus growths. Some may be hostile, their minds taken over by the fungus, while others are just in a state of constant pain. This could lead to the party's first encounter. Treat any infected as their monster type, but controlled by the parasitic fungus. For added threat, their attacks could deal acid damage. Also, treat this as a disease. It deals 1 damage a day at first, then progresses at your discretion, dealing more damage in shorter increments of time. 2 damage a day, 5 damage an hour, 10 damage a minute, etc. However, a simple cure of disease can remove its effect. For added challenge, you can have a ranger or druid order that is coming to burn everything to the ground, even killing the infected to stop the spread, creating hostilities within the local communities. Once the players enter the swamp, they'll need to cross various acidic pools and avoid the fungus. Fungus can deal damage upon touch for added challenge, or grow in clusters. Rewards can be offered for each patch destroyed to prevent its further spread, or they can be given a fixed amount to burn. Local wildlife, like alligators, can be infected with the fungus spores, protecting the patches, or wander around as random encounters. After some time spent searching the swamp, from a few hours to days, the players will come across the ruins of the Bathhouse. It stands as a gray marble building, layered in green fungus, resting atop an island of moss in the middle of an algae-covered lake. The lake is acidic, dealing acid damage to anyone who enters. Urgel created an illusion of glowing gold at the bottom of the lake to act as a trap to lure travelers within. The bed of fungus on the island is mostly harmless, their acid eating away at the player's boots, but does little else. However, a few acid mushroom patches do spit acid at anyone who gets too close, their range being roughly 30 feet, dealing XD6 damage based on challenge. Give the patch a set number of hit points and attacks based on the challenge you wish to give the player. The bathhouse is built of dissolving gray marble, eaten away by layers of green fungus. However, it is still structurally sound, nor is there currently any holes in the wall. A marble walkway leads through rows of marble pillars, and statues of Gnoll warriors, each caked in acid fungus, stand half dissolved. The front door is only scraps of dissolved iron, with a blanket of fungus covering the entrance. If any player touches the fungus, they take XD6 acid damage on touch and contract the acid disease. Any weapons hidden in the fungus will also take acid damage upon contact. While I have included a basic layout of the bathhouse for easy navigation, feel free to add your own rooms to extend its length. Room 1. A gray marble room contains 4 baths built into the floor. The floors and walls are layered in green acidic fungus. Acid fungus fills the tubs. If players touch the contents, they will receive XD6 acid damage and contract the acid disease. The acidic fungus on the floor is much stronger than the fungus outside, eating the player's boots upon contact and dealing acid damage based on challenge. The back door is only scraps of dissolved iron with a blanket of mold covering the entrance. If any player touches the mold, they take XD6 acid damage on touch and contract the acid disease. Room 2. A gray marble room. In the center of the chamber stands a gray marble statue of a goblin woman in a robe. There is no noticeable exit to the chamber. When players enter the room, the statue spits acid from its face in a cone attack. Players should get a save according to the challenge to avoid the attack. However, if they are hit, the acid dissolves 1 mundane item, clothing, backpack, weapon, etc., in addition to dealing XD6 acid damage. The statue was animated and built by Urgel as a defense, and will not spray at anyone infected with the disease. including the players. Once the players enter, the statue continues to spray every X rounds till the player leaves. It draws from the pond outside and is virtually endless. The walls are acid resistant, similar to a wall of force. One of the walls will slide open if a player tries to find a secret door, or it can be pried open. This will lead to room 3. For added difficulty, you can have walls and floors layered in acidic fungus, as per room 1. This room is made of gray marble and contains several large tubs built into the floor, filled with acid. A giant iron door leads out. This door slides open, leading back into room 2. The tubs are filled with acid, dealing XD6 acid damage upon touch. With a search or spot check, players can find large green tinted jars with glass toppers resting at the bottom. Inside, Urgel hides his treasure: coins, potions, scrolls, magic items, etc. The door is locked and needs either brute force to be opened or have its lock picked. For added challenge, the door can be trapped with a spore cloud of acid that sprays any player who tries to break through. The spore cloud's radius and damage should be based on the challenge of your game. A corridor of gray stone ends in a thick iron door. A small hole is cut into the floor next to 5 small barrels. The door is a foot thick and weighs over 1,000 pounds, making it almost impossible to open by brute strength and contains no lock. The door is magically sealed by Urgel, and instead of using a password or knock, he uses the acid stored in the barrels to perform a ritual that will allow the door to open. The barrels are lined with glass and contain a small amount of acid. Above is a shelf with a few beakers. The acid can be various shades of green to denote strength, or all the same color if you want the players to figure out the strength of the acid on their own. The beakers can be used by the players to pour the acid into the hole. The acid will do very little damage, unless you wish to offer the acid as part of the reward, in which case each beaker of acid gathered will increase in damage by d6, from 1d6 for the weakest to 5d6 for the strongest. Urgel will pour the acid from weakest to strongest into the hole in the floor that leads to a tunnel under the door frame. From there, it mixes, creating a knock spell effect that will visually appear as acid eating away at the door till a large hole appears that the players can pass through. The door will reform and lock after 1 minute. Because the order of the acid matters, the puzzle should force the players to test the acid on equipment or themselves to find their strength. For added challenge, every time the players mess up the order, a gas cloud can form from the hole, similar to room 3. This is a gray stone chamber. Shelves and table cluster the room, covered in bottles of colored liquid, jars of fungus, and other various tools. A large furnace and oven stand in the center of the room, with a bubbling pot on the fire. In the center of the chamber, Urgel, covered head to toe in green glowing fungus, works tirelessly, pouring liquid from bottle to bottle, only stopping once the players step inside. He gives only a pause to see what the players will do, or perhaps offer an explanation, before he becomes aggressive. The bottles are mostly useless, half-made concoctions and brew, but a few potions can be found in the chamber. They will be random as per the potion chart, but feel free to add more acid and fungus-related potions like immunity to acid and speak with fungus. These are several ovens Urgel uses to heat up his elixirs and experiments. He currently has a pot of bubbling acid on the fire, and will throw it at the players if desperate. It will deal at least 2d6 damage the first round, though more dice can be added to increase its strength. Then each following round, it will continue to burn, decreasing in damage by a d6 till reaching 0. These are Urgel's work tables, where he keeps a few scrolls of summoning and some healing potions. Any animals he summons will be infected with a parasitic fungus. Also, if Urgel has time to prepare, he will use the summon spells as part of his defense. Urgel is a goblin wizard, his level based on the difficulty of the adventure. Urgel is immune to acid damage. His staff and dagger will deal acid damage in addition to the plus of the weapon. Any weapons that hit Urgel must roll a save or melt. All elemental spells Urgel casts will be acid infused. Acid Ball instead of Fireball, Acid Bolt instead of Lightning Bolt. Also, any charm or mind effects he casts will appear as a spore cloud. When Urgel is slain, he bursts in a radius, spraying all the players in acid, dealing XD6 acid damage, and forcing saves for all exposed mundane items, or they will be destroyed. And he infects all the players with the acid disease. For added difficulty, you can have a few acid mushroom patches growing in the room that spits acid, or releases acidic choking spores, dealing acid damage and stunning the player for a round. The acid begins to dilute over time, and the fungus begins to wither and die without Urgel. The spores soon stop spreading. However, all infected parties with the acid disease still need Cure Disease to be healed. If you want to increase difficulty, you can have the acid and fungus remain after Urgel's death, forcing the players to find a way to neutralize it. Maybe the fungus continues spreading, and soon a legion of zombie-like fungus creatures spread across the land. Maybe the fungus mutates into something even more powerful, requiring a wish or artifact to stop. Maybe the druid and ranger order isn't satisfied the threat is being dealt with, and starts burning and killing the infected, forcing the players to take a side. And that concludes our little story for today, traveler. I hope you enjoyed my tale. I do have more. There is oh so many. Did this help inspire you to help create your own stories? I hope it has. Regardless, have a good evening, and I hope to see you again very soon.